Stop scrolling right now, because what you're about to see might completely change the way you look at everyday coins. This small piece of metal in your hand could actually be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars, and most people have no idea. Today we're not just talking about a coin, we're uncovering hidden value, rare mistakes, and secrets that banks will never tell you. So before you spend it, or ignore it, watch this video till the end, because one detail could turn your pocket change into real money. Step 1. United States 1 dime 1979 D mint mark, a small silver-toned coin that looks ordinary at first glance, but under the right light, it can feel like it is hiding a secret that most people walk past every single day without ever noticing. And the strange part is that this exact dime has passed through millions of hands since it left the Denver Mint in 1979, quietly entering circulation during a time when the U.S. economy was shifting. Inflation was rising, and the demand for everyday coinage was incredibly high, making this piece a true product of heavy mass production rather than rarity on the surface. Struck at the Denver Mint, the D mint mark on this dime is more than just a letter under Roosevelt's neck. It represents where the coin was born under strict U.S. mint production standards, using the Roosevelt dime design by John R. Sinek, originally introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt after his death. And by 1979, the design had already been struck billions of times. Yet each year still carries subtle differences in strike pressure, die condition, and production batches that collectors quietly study decades later. This coin is composed of a copper core with a copper-nickel-clad outer layer, giving it that familiar silvery appearance without containing any significant silver content like older pre-1965 dimes, and that detail alone often surprises new collectors who assume all dimes are silver. But the real story lies not in precious metal value, but in condition, strike quality, and the microscopic details that separate a common pocket piece from a certified collectible. On the obverse, Roosevelt's portrait faces left with the inscriptions, Liberty, and In God We Trust, while the reverse displays the torch of liberty centered between an olive branch and an oak branch, symbolizing peace and strength, and under magnification collectors look for sharpness in Roosevelt's hairlines, clarity in lettering edges, and whether the strike fully defined the torch flames. Because weak strikes from worn dies can significantly reduce collector interest, even in uncirculated coins. At face value, this 1979 D-dime is worth just 10 cents, and even in typical circulated condition, it rarely exceeds a few cents above that. But as the story deepens, uncirculated examples pulled directly from mint sets or original rolls can begin to show a different side, sometimes reaching around $1 to $5 depending on luster and preservation. Especially if the coin has retained strong original mint shine without heavy contact marks or environmental damage. In higher preservation grades, where professional grading services evaluate the coin under strict standards like MS65 or MS66, values can rise into the range of $10 to $50 and occasionally higher if the strike is exceptionally sharp with minimal bag marks. And this is where collectors begin examining technical details like rim smoothness, edge uniformity, and overall eye appeal. Because even tiny imperfections, invisible to the naked eye, can change a coin's grade and market value. Then comes the hidden layer that keeps collectors searching. Mint errors and unusual die varieties, such as off-center strikes, clip planchets, double strikes, or dramatic minting anomalies that slip past quality control at the Denver facility. And while most 1979 D-dimes show standard production characteristics, rare error examples in exceptional condition can reach several $100s, and in extremely unusual, well-documented cases with strong demand, prices may climb into the low thousands, sometimes approaching the $1,000 to $3,000 range, always depending on certification and market interest at the time. And as the final thought lingers, the real mystery of the 1979 D-dime is not just what it is, but where it might still be hiding, because coins like this continue to circulate in change, sit forgotten in old jars, rest inside inherited collections, or remain untouched in drawers for decades, waiting for someone to notice the tiny D under Roosevelt's neck and realize that even the most ordinary-looking dime can carry a story shaped by history, precision minting, and the quiet possibility that something far more valuable might still be sitting in plain sight. Step 2. United States 1 dime 1967, no mint mark. A coin that looks almost too ordinary to notice, yet carries a silent story from a turning point in American coinage history, when the U.S. Mint made one of its most important changes ever by removing mint marks from circulation coins, leaving behind a generation of dimes that can feel identical on the surface, but can still hold subtle differences that collectors spend years learning how to recognize. This 1967 Roosevelt dime was struck during a period when the United States was transitioning away from silver coinage in everyday circulation, and by this time the coin is already made from a copper-nickel-clad composition, with a pure copper core sandwiched between outer layers of copper and nickel, giving it that familiar silvery shine, but without any actual silver content, a major shift that changed how millions of Americans viewed their pocket change forever. The design itself remains one of the most iconic in U.S. coin history, created by engraver John R. Sinek, showing President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse as a tribute to his leadership and legacy, while the reverse carries the torch of liberty flanked by an olive branch and oak branch, symbolizing peace and strength. And even though the design is consistent, collectors know that each year and each strike can still reveal differences in sharpness, detail depth, and overall strike quality, depending on the condition of the dies used during production. What makes the 1967 dime especially interesting is the absence of a mint mark, which was intentionally removed between 1965 and 1967 to discourage coin hoarding during a nationwide coin shortage, meaning all dimes from this year were struck without any visible D or S, creating a unique uniform appearance that at first seems simple, but actually becomes a challenge for collectors trying to trace production nuances and identify rare varieties hidden within massive mint output. At face value, this coin is still just 10 cents, and in circulated condition, it rarely goes beyond that, often sitting in jars, wallets, or old drawers without any attention at all. But as collectors begin to examine higher quality examples, uncirculated pieces can start to show values around $5 to $20 depending on luster, strike strength, and preservation, especially when the original mint frost remains intact without scratches or heavy contact marks from circulation. As grading becomes more advanced, coins certified in higher mint state conditions like MS-65 or MS-66 can reach approximately $25 to $100, and in some stronger strike examples where the details of Roosevelt's hair, the torch flames, and the lettering edges appear exceptionally sharp and fully defined, collectors may see even more interest, especially when the coin shows strong eye appeal under professional third-party grading standards, where every microscopic flaw becomes part of the final valuation. Then comes the layer that keeps serious collectors searching. Mint errors and rare varieties, such as off-center strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, or dramatic doubling in lettering caused by die deterioration or misalignment during the high-volume production years of the late 1960s. And while most 1967 dimes are standard, the rare error examples in verified high-grade can climb into the hundreds of dollars, and in extremely unusual and well-documented cases, values can reach into the $1,000 to $3,000 range, always depending on certification, rarity, and collector demand at the time of sale. And as the story closes, the 1967 no-mint mark dime becomes more than just a piece of post-Silver era coinage. It becomes a reminder that everyday change can still hold hidden possibilities, because somewhere right now this exact coin could still be sitting unnoticed in a jar, a forgotten collection, or a handful of loose change, waiting for someone to slow down just long enough to realize that even the simplest dime might carry a quiet history and a value far beyond what the eye first believes. Step 3. United States 1 dime 1970 no mint mark, a coin that at first glance feels completely ordinary, almost forgettable in a handful of change, yet it carries the quiet weight of an era when American coin production was running at full speed, and millions of Roosevelt dimes were being struck and released into circulation without pause, leaving behind subtle details that only trained eyes can separate from the noise of everyday pocket change. This 1970 Roosevelt dime belongs to the modern clad era, struck in a copper-nickel composition with a pure copper core, meaning it contains no silver despite its bright metallic appearance, and that alone often surprises people who assume older-looking dimes still hold precious metal value. But by 1970, the U.S. Mint had fully transitioned away from silver for circulation coinage, focusing instead on durability and mass production efficiency during a period of heavy economic activity. The design still carries the iconic work of John R. Sinek, showing President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse with the inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust, while the reverse presents the torch of liberty surrounded by olive and oak branches, symbols of peace and strength. And even though this design was already decades old by 1970, each strike still depended heavily on die condition, pressure consistency, and minting precision. Which means no two coins are ever truly identical under magnification. The absence of a mint mark on this coin is where the mystery begins for many collectors, because by 1970 mint marks were still used on most coins, but certain production practices and distribution patterns mean that some dimes appear without a clear mint mark, especially when examining worn or weakly struck examples, and this subtle detail can sometimes create confusion, leading collectors to carefully verify whether a coin is truly a no-mint mark piece, or simply showing a faint or obscured strike characteristic. At face value, this dime is still worth just 10 cents, and in circulated condition, it remains exactly that in most cases, but the real story starts when collectors pull examples from rolls, mint sets, or long-forgotten collections, where uncirculated pieces can begin to show values around $5 to $25 depending on luster, surface preservation, and how well the original mint finish has survived decades of handling and storage. As grading becomes more advanced, coins evaluated in higher mint state conditions, such as MS-65 or MS-66, can reach approximately $50 to $150, especially when the strike is strong and the details of Roosevelt's hair, the torch flames, and the lettering edges remain sharp and fully defined, because professional grading services closely analyze factors like surface marks, rim quality, alignment precision, and overall eye appeal before assigning a final grade that directly influences market value. Then there is the layer that collectors search for most intensely, the hidden world of mint errors and die varieties, where small mistakes during production become major points of interest, including off-center strikes, die cracks, doubled lettering, or subtle misalignments caused by worn dies. And while most 1970 no-mint mark dimes are standard issues, rare error examples in verified high condition can reach several $100s, and in extremely exceptional, well-documented cases, values may approach the $1,000 to $3,000 range, always depending on certification, demand, and authenticity verification. And in the end, the true mystery of the 1970 no-mint mark dime is not just what it is worth, but where it might still be hiding right now, because coins like this are still quietly moving through circulation, resting in old jars, tucked inside forgotten drawers, or sitting untouched in inherited collections, waiting for a moment when someone finally looks closer and realizes that even the smallest, most overlooked dime can carry a hidden story shaped by history, precision, and the possibility of something far more valuable than it first appears. Step 4. United States, 1 dime 1990 no-mint mark. A coin that feels almost invisible in everyday life, yet carries a quiet tension for collectors who know that even modern-looking dimes can sometimes reveal unexpected stories when examined under the right light. And the strange part is that most people have handled this exact type of coin countless times without ever realizing there are details hidden in plain sight that separate ordinary circulation pieces from carefully preserved collector examples. By 1990, the Roosevelt dime was already a long-established design, originally created by engraver John R. Sinek and first introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, and even decades later, the design remains unchanged on the surface, showing Roosevelt's profile on the obverse with liberty and in God we trust, while the reverse continues to display the torch of liberty flanked by olive and oak branches. Symbols of peace and strength that have silently carried through generations of American coinage. This 1990 dime is struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition, meaning it has a pure copper core wrapped in a copper-nickel alloy, giving it that familiar silver-like appearance without containing any actual silver, and by this time in U.S. mint history, clad coin production had become highly refined, producing billions of coins each year with extreme efficiency, which also means that while most examples are common, the smallest variations in strike quality or die condition can still become important to collectors. The idea of a no-mint mark, 1990 dime often creates curiosity, because by this era mint marks such as P, D, and S were normally used to identify Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco production, and when a coin appears without a visible mint mark, collectors carefully investigate whether it is a true Philadelphia issue, a weak strike, or a surface wear situation that has removed or obscured the detail, making authentication an important step before any value assessment. At face value, this coin is still worth just 10 cents, and even in typical circulated condition, it rarely exceeds that amount, often blending into pocket change, vending machine returns, or loose coin jars without any attention. But once collectors begin examining uncirculated examples pulled from original rolls or mint sets, values can begin to shift into the range of $5 to $25, depending on luster, sharpness, and overall surface preservation. As grading becomes more precise, coins evaluated in higher mint state conditions, such as MS-65 or MS-66, can reach approximately $50 to $150, especially when the strike is strong and the details of Roosevelt's hair, the torch flames, and lettering edges remain crisp and fully defined, and professional grading services carefully inspect factors like weight consistency, rim shape, alignment, microscopic contact marks, and color toning before assigning a final certified grade that directly influences collector demand. Then there is the hidden layer that always keeps collectors alert, the world of mint errors and die varieties, where production imperfections turn ordinary coins into something far more interesting, including off-center strikes, die cracks, doubled lettering, weak strikes, or subtle planchet anomalies. And while most 1990 no-mint mark dimes are standard circulation pieces, rare error examples in certified high grade can reach several $100s, and in extremely rare, well-documented cases with strong demand, values may approach the $1,000 to $3,000 range, always depending on authentication and market conditions at the time. And as the story closes, the 1990 no-mint mark dime becomes a reminder that even modern coins still carry uncertainty, because somewhere right now this exact coin could still be sitting unnoticed in a kitchen drawer, buried inside a coin jar, stored in an old collection box, or moving quietly through circulation, waiting for someone to pause long enough to notice the smallest details that separate the ordinary from the potentially extraordinary. And that is where the real mystery of everyday money continues to live.